There's a smart new website that will change the way you invest using social media.
LikeFolio.
Here to explain,
A team of brothers, Andy and Landon Swan.
of LikeFolio.
And they've always been building out great technology at the intersection of social and trading.
Powered by unique social data. Analyzed by legendary traders. The LikeFolio broadcast starts right now.
Yes, I would like the double Ristretto Venti half soy non-fat decaf organic chocolate brownie iced vanilla double shot gingerbread frappuccino, extra hot with foam whipped cream upside down double blended, one sweet and low and one NutraSweet and ice. According to Cora, that is the longest order you could possibly do at Starbucks.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
So we're talking about Starbucks today, obviously, and Nick and I do not drink coffee. So we had to bring in an expert. Todd Earwood is in the house.
What's up, Todd?
What's up, boys?
He is a coffee drinker. You were saying you went to Starbucks this morning.
I went to Starbucks this morning, which is normally not where I go, but because I had to go to a meeting, it was the nearest coffee fix I could get. And I don't think you two understand the addiction and the joy that comes from a morning, noon, and afternoon coffee.
3.
Yeah, like normally it's actually double morning coffee, one in the afternoon. But there's people, I have friends that like they drink it before they go to bed.
Yeah, that's what my dad does. My dad's like he like gets caffeine headaches.
Right.
If he doesn't get enough caffeine,
I've tried
he's
to
got to
get
get
off
his fix.
That's right. I've tried to get off it before. It's not fun. It's not fun. So just roll with it. Yeah. Starbucks this morning.
I tried. I'm just like, I guess I'm a wimp or something because I get like shaky and like
When I went
dizzy.
off of it in high school, I had about 2 or 3 weeks of headaches.
Did you?
I just powered through it. That's how long it lasted, and then I don't get anything.
So the deal though on coffee though, I don't think, I mean, there are just like beer snobs or whatever else, right? There are coffee snobs, and Starbucks is not good coffee for them. Like people that like coffee hardcore, this is not, heck no.
I thought Starbucks was like the elite.
It's not. So actually, I know this from recently when I was in San Francisco, they were talking about, somebody was talking about coffee, and I was at dinner and this guy was clearly was a coffee snob, and he was like, do you go to this place and this place? Yeah, I like those places. And San Francisco, a lot of people like Phil's local coffee, super good coffee. And he's like, we know what they do at Starbucks, right? So what's that? He goes, they just scorch it. They just burn. They can take tons of different beans. So the type of beans, where it's sourced, what it tastes like, they get them together and mix them up, and they just burn them. And that way, like, that's how you get
consistency.
The consistency. McDonald's-esque, stamp them out everywhere you go. You get the same kind. According to him, like coffee snob guy, like, hey, this is just how you scorch the beans.
Because otherwise, at that volume, you can't have consistency because you got sourcing from everywhere, and maybe this guy's crops down or whatever. You can't do it.
That's right.
So when you say burn them, are you talking about, is that like the roast level?
Yeah. So
like roast level 5 instead of like a mild roast?
Right. You can have like a dark roast, a light roast. And so he says they just scorch them, like they burn them so much that it just takes out all the different combinations and makes it ubiquitous. Whereas like in a local coffee shop that I would go to here, I can taste the difference on a day to, like the cup of I never say, oh, give me Nicaragua or Guatemala. Usually that's what they call them, where the beans are sourced from. Mm-hmm. I don't care. Like those guys pick good beans. It's good. I like them, whatever they serve me. But some people absolutely care. And I can taste the difference when you give me this one versus that. I can taste the difference.
Wow.
So, but that's not what the local coffee guy is trying to do, right? Starbucks does want that consistency every single cup. When you take, I get the light blend, the veranda, which is also called the blonde. Give me the tall blonde. Mm-hmm. And to get the tall blonde, and the tall blonde is the same everywhere I go.
That's your order, Tall blonde.
It's actually venti blonde is like the big cup.
Nice and short. I like that.
So Starbucks is Maker's Mark bourbon, basically.
It's just, yeah.
Most people love it, but if you're a bourbon snob like me, you don't want it near you.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. If you're a connoisseur, you're not down with Starbucks.
Hey, I saw a good tweet on the TD Ameritrade social signals tab from @sortabad. Imagine meeting the woman of your dreams and then finding out her Starbucks order is 14 words long. Would that be a turnoff, Todd, if she started doing what I did on the intro?
Oh man, like for sure. Like I have some friends that turns them off just that I like cream in my coffie. Right? They just want coffee black. And so I can't imagine the things you said, like 16 of those 18 words I'd never heard of before. Like I know the sizes and Starbucks, like you have to learn the routine. Like, just like there's a certain sequence of how you're supposed to get the order, and some baristas will correct you if you don't lead with like the right order. Like you start with size.
Gotcha.
Like, what cup should I grab? You say,
that kind of makes sense, but
right? Like, and then the milk comes later. Like you say, give me the size, give me the drink, give me the add-ons. The ridiculous thing is you added in every add-on they have on the menu. But there's a sequence, and much like there's even, they say like there's some secret menu stuff you can say to a barista, like, I'm not down with, I just don't do that kind of stuff at Starbucks.
Yeah.
But so that's coffee, right? The other side you got to understand about Starbucks is what they're really great at that the local coffee shops are not great at is the sugary drinks. The stuff that has a little bit of coffee in it, or they'll put in some espresso, but dude, they are masterful at the pumpkin spice.
I was just going to say,
at
would
the
that be like a
caramel
pumpkin spice latte?
Dude, the Christmas one, they've got one for Valentine's Day. You know, my wife and I were there. We were in San Diego, and of course, I needed caffeine in the afternoon, so we found a Starbucks, and they had some Valentine's Day 72-hour only blend, but it was like a milkshake with some coffee.
Nice.
And that's why every high school girl you see is at Starbucks, and they're drinking like milkshakes. That's the frappuccinos, right? That's what those are. And they're great at that. And the local coffee shops never touch it. They can't.
That's interesting.
That is interesting.
Nick, what do you see when you look at the stock chart?
So Starbucks is a stock that I utilize a lot. We've talked on the show about beta weighted delta.
Mm-hmm.
I use Starbucks as my negative delta. If I'm getting too positive, I'll throw on some Starbucks to get some negative deltas, because it's always kind of, it's just been hanging out at the top end of its range, kind of in the 60, 62.50 area for several months. It doesn't tend to really go crazy to the upside when it starts getting a little bit of an uptrend. What we've seen recently is the stock has continued to stay flat against the 62.5, 60 range resistance, and it pulled back a little bit about a month ago. It's rebounded, pretty much retraced 100% of that pullback. Right now we're sitting at 57.75.
What is it, up or down on the day?
Currently it is pretty flat on the day. It's down 0.4%. Implied volatility is currently 26%. And, that's fairly high from a 52-week perspective. The 40 has been pretty much the highest. 40% is the highest implied volatility.
I would have thought it might have been down today after I saw another thing on the social signals tab was a tweet that the FDA is recalling the morning sandwiches for in Texas, Arkansas, and Oklahoma for fear of listeria. So I thought maybe it would, like a Chipotle scare kind of thing.
Sure.
But I guess it's so narrow that maybe it's not going to affect the stock in a big way.
Probably not. Obviously not, because the market's not reacting to it too much. Yeah, I think those types of things would probably stay priced into the stock. A little tiny blip like that.
Yep, that's true. That's true. So I guess we'll take a look at the data now. LikeFolio data, we've got it going back to 2012. And, the stock's been pretty much on fire since 2012. It's had a little resistance lately, but it's gone from 20 or something, up to what it is now, which is, up near 60. Pretty amazing.
2012 was around 22, 25 most of the year.
Okay. So the LikeFolio data on, brand mentions and purchase intent have been fairly consistent with the stock price, but we're starting to fall off here, and it concerns me a little bit for the stock. Also, if you look at what the current levels are and you see when the last time it was at that level, it would suggest a price much lower than where we're at. It would suggest a price around $40. So there's been a divergence in the last year between the data and the stock price. And so we did have a recent run up, but it's come back down, and it's kind of testing the lows on both brand mention and purchase intent. Sentiment's been pretty phenomenal throughout the history of the company, up around 85 or so percent. And so very consistent, but purchase intent and brand mentions have been coming down over the last couple of months, and we haven't seen a big sell off yet. So I would say that, you might want to look at the next earnings report, which is April 21st after the market closed. So we've got a few weeks.
When you look at purchase intent, does Is there any seasonality to it? Going into spring, is there less people buying coffee, or does it stay pretty consistent?
It looks to me to be pretty consistent. There's some seasonality in the winter months. It comes up a little bit, but it's not extreme. So winter's higher and summer looks to be lower, but overall it's nothing like a retailer or anything like that.
Okay. So Todd, are you an iced coffee guy in the summer, or do you just straight up go hot no matter what time of year?
It's time of day for me. I will every morning start with a warm cup of coffee.
Okay.
In the afternoon, I can somehow, like when you guys first said, "Hey, let's go start," like when you want to do Starbucks, I think is what you said, Landon. I was like, "Oh, like yes." And then I was like, "Oh, we're talking about the stock. Yeah, cool, but we're going to Starbucks, right?" like I genuinely thought, okay, like I'll get that afternoon kick, right? Like I genuinely thought that, and I'd already in my mind, Nick said, "Well, let's see what I'll probably get." Okay, yeah, I'll probably go excuse me, grande, which is medium.
Size first, buddy.
Grande iced caramel macchiato, non-fat, which has got like a lot of words.
That's a lot to spit out.
You would do if you
grande
stand in
iced caramel macchiato, non-fat.
Yeah.
I should be a barista.
Dude, if you guys were to stand in line, you'd be floored at, I would say the average order has the over-under 6 words.
Wow.
Cause you could go double Splenda, like,
yeah, it doesn't take
I
much
never
to
do
put you
those
over
kind
the
of
edge.
things, but like, it's very easy to get to
Wow.
6 would be the over-under.
That's crazy.
Isn't that nuts?
So based on this data here, I think, I was kind of hoping to hear some bearish data, honestly.
Really?
Because we've plugged into this resistance for quite a while, and we've seen some lower highs here recently. All in all, I think there's a decent opportunity to position bearish here. Personally, I like selling premium when I think there's an opportunistic time to do so. I think with the implied volatility levels at 25%, it's not the best opportunity to sell premium, but it's good enough.
How does that compare to the history of Starbucks? That seems low for a company in general, but what about for Starbucks?
If we look at August of last year and prior, 25 was pretty much, or 28.30 was pretty much the high end of the range.
Okay. So we are at high for.
Yeah, and the low end of the range was around 15. But if we take into account, after August of 2015, it put in a high of about 41. It pulled back, but it's touched 40 a few times. So this isn't exactly the most opportunistic from the perspective of the last 7-8 months. But if you take out the past 7-8 months, it looks opportunistic. So I think I like the idea of selling some calls here. Looking at the May 2016 calls with 73 days left until expiration, I like the 65 calls. They can be sold for somewhere between 32, 35 cents. And they force Starbucks to basically make a new all-time high.
Right. Well, before we get too far into trades, you and I are not big Starbucks guys because of coffee. We're not coffee drinkers. Todd, what is your take on the business? You mentioned going out to the launch festival in San Francisco. Did you see anything out there that had any bearing on Starbucks or the industry as a whole?
So, yes, I consumed Starbucks almost every day I was there. They had McDonald's.
You didn't go to Phil's?
I didn't go to Phil's only because of proximity. I'm not a complete loyalist that way. And by the way, McDonald's was a corporate sponsor of the launch festival, and they had just barrels of it, and I didn't have one. I don't want any part of that. So
even though you were talking about proximity, McDonald's is right there,
but it's not good.
Okay.
It's not good coffee. So I didn't do that. So I saw 2 interesting things related to coffee. One, the small size was we went to this investor dinner one night, and like the after dinner treat, after they served it, they gave out something to everybody, and it was a company called Morso. And it was little chocolates with caffeine infused that tells you on the outside of the little chocolate package. And I say little chocolate, I mean like a square, right? A tiny little square that would be the size of 4 chiclets.
Okay.
Right? There you go. There's the size.
Nice.
And like on the top, like, hey, this is coffee and cream, and it's 18 milligrams, whatever. Like it would tell you like it's this much coffee.
Now, do you eat that or you put it in? You mix it with milk or anything?
No. These are
Okay.
just flavors they're telling you, but they were all coffee or drink themed coffee. So I saw that. That was really interesting. They gave us like a sample pack, and that was cool because then some of you carry in your pocket go, you need coffee? Or sorry, you need a bump? Cool. You need a bump? Okay. Just whoop, I pop that in there.
So what is
right?
a typical milligram caffeine per cup of coffee? Like 25 milligrams?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think it's a little less than that because I want to say that The highest on this was 18 or 20. I think that's right, but I'm not 100% certain.
So these chocolates are similar to having a cup of coffee?
Yeah, and their point was you can carry
caffeine-wise.
Right, you can carry them in your pocket. I mean, sometimes, like in the summertime, you asked about hot and cold. Like, dude, like if it's really hot, I don't want my body temperature going up and it's already whatever. Exactly. So that's there. The other crazy part I saw, which is just mind-blowing, is, Launch Festival is the world's largest startup conference. There were 15,000 entrepreneurs there. There were hundreds of us as investors.
So many.
I mean, it's it's in 3 buildings. It's ginormous. There were 220 plus companies, 40 of which demoed on stage. And one of the biggest scenes physically you could see was a company called Cafe X, and they ended up winning the Launch Festival. And it was robotic baristas, like an all-in-one unit you put in a bottom floor of an office building, and you say, hey, you don't have room for retail space? Drop this Cafe X in there. You can order it from your phone. It'll see how far you are away from the Cafe X unit.
Oh, wow.
And then like you walk up and it gives you the mobile app, gives you a pin, and you walk up and says, oh, this is Nick. He wanted this. And you can add in the elaborate drinks are still there. But here's the thing. They go for high-end coffee. So the snobs like it too, because you could do the mixes. Say, well, I want a little bit of this bean and this bean. Like, it can dynamically do all that. And I'm sure it
saves your order for next time, and you can just bink, give it to me.
And of course, you don't pay, there's no transactions. Just like, Starbucks has that too, right? So, that was wild to see. They won Best in Show, and they've already raised money. Like they had 2 of them operational there, which, it was wild to see the robotics angle. Like literally.
How big are these machines?
They're 50 square feet. So I think they're probably 8 feet tall. And it's got a big glass screen so you can see all the robots moving.
That's cool.
It's a sight to see. The branding is super slick.
So it's like a couple of Coke vending machine kind of, like maybe 2 of those.
Yeah,
next
and
to
it's
each other
a little more depth.
And deeper.
There's a little more depth because there's some computers in there, and it takes 30 minutes to reload it. And so their thing was like, why should you accept mediocrity? Because this is the one trick of coffee you guys don't know. It's like baristas screw it. They're humans. They screw it up.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right? They screw up your order and they go, oh, like, well, and I said I wanted extra cream. Like, I meant dump it in there. And you like, just like Moe's skimps you sometime. You get the wrong person. They don't give you as much chicken as you want.
Right.
Right? That's how your life is with a barista.
Oh boy.
They're just humans. They're not purposely skimping on you, right? There's no science to it, but there is with Cafe X. Like,
that's cool.
They'll get your order right.
100%.
And then just go, oh, you want that? Just reload.
Do you know what their model is? Are they trying to license to like a Starbucks? Or are they trying to be their own coffee seller?
A lot of investors asked them that, including us. And today their model is one of 2 things. One, they want to be corporate owned, dropping these in. It makes $50,000 per unit to manufacture. And they drop it into your office building.
I mean, I know it's high, but it seems low, honestly.
Well, they say they can get it down even more. Like at scale, like they can really drive the cost down. But so what they would do is you own an office building, say, hey, Landon, we're going to put this in your office building. You can lease it from us, or we can just drop it in and we get free rent and you get a percentage of revenue either way.
Wow.
Like we'll split revs with you. And think about all the buildings.
That could destroy Starbucks. I mean, if you have one at work in your building or at home or whatever, all of a sudden you don't need to take your little detour to Starbucks.
No, with robotic precision on your order, I'm guessing you can probably get super specific on the amount of cream, for example, you want, the amount of vanilla syrup and stuff like that.
Yeah, wacky detail level. So that was one model. The other model they're looking at is possibly franchise, which obviously be less capital intensive on the company to start out. But they're in San Francisco today, and it was fascinating to see.
They're out there working. They
had 2 real units I ordered from.
Yeah, that's
like
awesome.
One was in when you walk in right past the free cheap McDonald's coffee, there's a huge glass thing and you go, what is this? And everybody's wearing black and white and you go, oh, this is a robot coffee shop.
Wow.
And it's so cool because you see these arms moving and then they're like, hey guys, just do this. Here's how you order it. It was mind blowing.
What happens if
that's wild.
So there's going to be a rush, right? Everybody's going to come in at the same time a lot of times. What does it do if there's 10 people waiting or have their orders at the same time? Do you know what it does then?
It stacks them up side by side. So again, it can either I believe, read where you are geographically if you're in a cab or an Uber trying to get somewhere, right? Because this would like be perfect for a guy like me. I'm going to have a meeting. Like I went to Starbucks because I was going to a meeting and because I don't want his crappy Keurig coffee in his office.
Right.
I don't want that. So for me, it was worth driving 10 minutes early to go get in line at Starbucks drive-through to come, then go to the meeting. Now imagine if I were in an office building and I knew I had to go there, I'd be like, I'll just place my order. And it knows when I'm showing up. And so what they'll do is if they'll even give you a grace period, if you get hung up in traffic or whatever, they toss it away because it's beans and water.
Oh, they just make a new
So
one.
because it cost them think about the economics of a unit cup of coffee. It's so much margin.
Sure.
So they'll just dump it out and give you another one.
Because you want it piping hot. They want you to have a good experience every time.
Yeah.
Starbucks needs to buy this company.
It would be a smart move for them.
So they talked about that. Do they even license these out and say, this is going to be a Starbucks Cafe X? We just want to have the platform. You put your coffee and whatever in it. So they talked about that as an option. But like in general, like I think there are a lot of people that just like McDonald's, if you want that consistency, like Starbucks offers you that. I think that the local coffee shop model is still viable. And like on a local level, I go to Honey Brothers. And when I'm in Boston, I go to a specific place. In San Francisco, I go to a specific place.
Right.
And I think I don't go Starbucks first. I do not. But also you got to think about their menus totally changed. Like they're now serving lots of food. Just like you would see a gas station serving food. Like the core, and it's no longer just getting your gum and in a Gatorade at a gas station. Now they're serving pizza and sandwiches, right? Starbucks is no different. And that's what you saw about this announcement today was the food issue.
Right.
Right. So yeah, I think I'm not bullish on Starbucks only because I think it's got too many ways to be disintermediated. There's too many ways and too many alternatives to get their product.
That makes sense. So the data is somewhat bearish. Our coffee expert and startup expert is not bullish, maybe bearish.
Yeah.
And Nick, you're bearish as well.
Moderately bearish.
From the resistance point?
Yeah, just the lower highs.
All right. So tell us more about the trade you were looking at. You're looking at the May puts or the May calls. You're selling May calls?
First, let me just mention coffee has 80 to 175 milligrams of caffeine.
There we go.
So if 8 ounces of drip coffee can be 115 to 175 milligrams, which is a huge range there. Brewed 80 to 135 and instant is 65 to 100. Average milligrams 85 per cup.
Okay, 85. Yeah, this I think this was still in the 20s, so I think this is like a
mini jolt.
Little, yep.
Sure.
You can pop 4 if you need to.
Yeah. Pop, pop. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So the trade is it was the May 2016 options, 73 days left till expiration. I'm looking at the 65 calls, selling them naked.
Selling them naked?
Yeah. Selling them naked between 32 and 35 cents is kind of where it's moving around right now. Basically that forces the stock to make new all-time highs, make new 52-week highs, make new all-time highs, break through the small little downtrend we've got going on here, and break through that resistance that we mentioned.
And we've got an earnings report between now and then.
Correct.
So you've got that in play. I was looking at something a little different. I want you to talk me out of it. Tell me why selling calls is better. You always talk me out of my trade. I was looking at the 60-57 bearish vertical. So I was going to buy the 60 put and sell the 57.5 put. Mm-hmm. I think that's around $1.20.
Looks like $1.30 debit, so
$1.30.
it's going to cost you $1.30.
So I can lose $1.30 per contract, or I can make $1.20 per
Correct.
contract. And if it stays where it's at, I make money, which I really like.
That's correct.
Well, basically, it's 25 cents away from max profit right now. Mm-hmm. So I like that one. It would create a situation where you basically need an all-time high, close to it. Not quite as good as the 65. Compare those two trades and tell me why you like yours better.
Well, I mean, I think they both have validity. Yours does have positive theta, so it can stay where it is right now, and you can still make money on the trade. You have a lower probability of success. Your probability of success is about 53% here, so it's above 50, which is positive. The probability of success on the trade that I was looking at is, let's just pull this up here, roughly 90% probability of success. So
your downside potential is obviously unlimited in theory.
Correct.
Starbucks goes to 100, which it's not going to do, but you do have a lot more downside potential, whereas my risk is limited. So,
I like both trades. I almost maybe like your trade a little bit better.
That's never happened.
Considering two things. One, you reminded me about the earnings risk coming up, which I hadn't really taken into consideration because I put this trade together a little quicker than I should have. And two, the implied volatility levels aren't super advantageous for selling premium, as I mentioned. They're good enough to sell premium, but they aren't optimal. And I really prefer to sell.
They're high for Starbucks, but not high for just general trading.
They're high for Starbucks if you take out the data from August 2015 to today, because the fact that it's touched 40%, 4 or 5 times now since August.
Okay.
You can't really ignore that.
That's recently.
That's since August of 2015. So the past 7 months.
So it's not really high recently. I mean,
it's not crazy high recently.
Okay.
But it's high enough to where I would consider selling premium. But, I think the defined risk play is a better opportunity here because of the low implied volatility. You're looking at a debit spread in your case.
I like debits because they're easy for my brain to understand.
Sure.
You could do the calls and do a credit spread if you wanted.
Sure.
Which do you prefer?
I think in this particular case, I generally prefer debit spreads when the implied volatility is at the low end of the range, credit spreads when the implied volatility is at the high end of the range. So since it's at the low end of the range, I like the debit spread.
Perfect. So we're going to buy the 60 puts, sell the 57.5 puts. These are May that we're talking about, around $1.30, and it'll be worth $2.50 if the stock is under 57.5, and it'll be worth 0 if the stock's at 60 or more.
Correct.
Awesome. Sounds good.
The only downside of that trade is that it doesn't really let the resistance levels that we mentioned come into play. With the short calls, it forces it to break through those resistance levels. But I still think this one has some validity.
All right. Awesome. Todd, thank you for coming in and sharing your coffee expertise and also the stuff about what's it called? Cafe X?
Yeah, it's Cafe X app on cafexapp.com or on Twitter, Facebook.
That's awesome. I'm going to check that out.
Cool.
That's really cool.
Now, when do we get our coffee?
All right, we're gonna go take him to Starbucks. He's kind of shaking a little bit right now, so we're gonna get out of here. Thank you for listening. You guys have a great day.